Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today, I am joined by a new to me author, which I'm very excited about, Mackenzie Hamlin, and she is the author of an upcoming debut novel called Anything for You. It's a YA new adult genre book. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to chat with you about it. Can you give us kind of like your elevator pitch of the story for those of us who don't know much about your writing?
Yeah, of course. It's about Maisie, and she is, oldest child. It's her and her two siblings who are suddenly placed in a foster care situation, and it just kind of follows her journey with healing and growth in an environment where she's finally able to be a teenager for like the first time in her life. So it explores
Okay.
like a lot of, teenage experiences and like new friendships and bonds and very found family centered.
So I know when I was kind of reading about it, you kind of have like more of the psychological lens aspect of mental health, which I really like. I think it's really important that we stop making mental health like taboo or whatever. So I love when authors represent that in their work. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. I'm actually in college. Like this is the whole background is like the dorm room. But I'm a psych major and I've always really been interested in psych, and I really like looking at like when I write characters and they have a specific past or trauma and
Hmm.
looking at how that doesn't like it doesn't shape who they are, but how it feeds into how they react to situations and how they approach their day-to-day life. And I think it's really important that especially in romance with characters that have trauma, like making it not romanticized and making it so that like yeah, there can be a romance, but without it being like he comes in and fixes her,
Hmm.
or where, the healing is solely because of like the romantic storyline. Like I really try and make it so that it's a journey that the character goes on, but like the love interest is like the supporting actor. Like they're there to push them along and like, be there. But it isn't like the healing isn't dependent on the romance.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think that's really important in this day and age. Like, don't get me wrong, I love those types of books, but at the same time, it's just like for like my own personal journey, like it wasn't fixed by someone else. It was
Exactly.
fixed by like the work I did, but I have supporting people around me, but like it wasn't fixed by that.
Yeah, and especially for people who read like reading and writing has been a big part of my personal healing journey too. And like for people who read to see themselves in books,
Mhm.
I feel like it's more empowering to see somebody who does it for themselves than
Exactly.
to see somebody who's like saved.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's more rewarding in that way when
Yeah.
they're self-healing and it's not because, like you said, because of someone else. So,
Yeah.
so what drew you to write in the YA new adults versus, full-fledged adult romance?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, dipped my toes into a lot of like I've written adult, I've written YA, I've written NA. But for this particular story, like I really wanted to do something with the foster system,
Hmm.
which, then they would have to be kind of teenage years. Otherwise, it's not like when they're actively in foster care, it wouldn't be an adult situation. And I also really wanted to explore like the high school experience from the lens of somebody who hadn't really been able to focus on the social aspects or just like, the things that mark like the teenage years before this new situation she's in. So I thought, doing that, the best audience for those like high school kind of monumental moments would be like a teenage audience.
How did you go about balancing the more emotional trauma triggering topics also while keeping the plot moving forward and keeping the characters engaged?
Yeah, I think I have some comedic relief. Like there's characters that were placed in there for um to be kind of like the lighthearted. So it's not just all really, really heavy stuff because it deals with a lot of heavy themes.
Yeah.
But keeping it where she knows she's not isolated was one of the tactics where showing how she gets over the struggles rather than just the struggles themselves, and like showing the coping mechanisms and the support system she builds for herself, and also just really like taking a minute to be sensitive when I'm writing it, because I know that people who are going to read it might relate, and I never want to be so like rash with it that it's like, oh my God. But just taking a minute to research the actual issue you're writing about and like learning the stories of people who relate to that helps me at least like write a more realistic experience, I guess, for the character.
So with your process, what does that look like for you? Are you a so I heard a new term, so I'm gonna use this new term now with when I ask this. So there's the plotter, the pantster, and then I heard of one called the quilter. And that
What?
one is
I've
where
never heard of the quilter.
right? I was like so I was at an event at Barnes& and Noble in, The Grove in LA, and they had 3 authors there, and the interviewer asked that, and it was where you can most authors write linearly, there we go, and this one is where you could be in chapter 1, then jump over to chapter 5, then jump to the ending, then jump back, and, like, you just fill in as you're writing. You don't have to go on a and, like, from the beginning to the
I have I have done that before. Kind of I'm all over the place with my like I never really follow the same like outline for each book. And even like there have been books that I've written that it's like I follow a specific like outline that I set for myself. But I never really usually like follow it to a T. I usually like I'll add scenes in, I'll be like, I don't really want to do that. And it always ends up changing a little bit. And then there's other books like with anything for you, like I had the idea and the first draft was done in like 3 months because it was just like it was just there. And at that point, it was like it was so vivid. Like I had notes taken down so I didn't forget things, but it kind of it flowed really naturally. I never had usually there's a period where I'll hit like a little bit of a roadblock and there will be like a week where I'm like, what am I even doing here? Like, and just like intense writer's block. And I never hit that with this book. Like I just kind of I started it and I went right through. But there have been books where I plot and when I hit like a writer's block kind of moment, sometimes what I do, like I guess the quilter jump where I'm like, this scene is tripping me up. I'll just skip it and write the next scene that I'd planned.
yeah.
But it kind of depends on the book. Like I've kind of done all of it. I definitely like having an outline though because it makes it flow a lot more. Like it doesn't feel as crazy.
Yeah, I'm definitely the pantster. Like I love my friend is a plotter and she's, outlining, she has like a calendar and she puts everything in its place and I want to be her so bad, but my brain just does not work that way.
Yeah. And I mean like,
So,
you know what? Everybody has their own process and you get the end result eventually.
yeah.
Some people just, have really structured ways of getting there and other people it's just like it just happens.
Exactly. Exactly. But I just always wonder. I'm like, it's like the people that have curly hair and they want straight hair or straight hair and want curly hair. It's like
Mhm.
you
It's
always
like
want what you don't
you
have.
always want you don't have, yeah. No worries.
With your story, did was there a character that was really difficult for you to write?
Yes. So there's not really a villain in this book. I mean, there's bullies. It's part of the teenage experience. That they just suck, but they're kind of like minor characters. But
Yeah.
the one character that I think was the most difficult was Maisie's mom. And you find out really early. It's not really a spoiler or anything, but there's a pattern of addiction there. And writing a character who you couldn't like she's not really a villain, even though she's kind of not necessarily a positive character. It was really hard to write a character that you couldn't hate but you couldn't love because I feel like it's really easy, not easy, but like it's simpler to construct a character that it's either like everybody's gonna love this one or like this is very clearly the bad guy. And the whole kind of point was to show how hard it is to love someone that struggles with addiction because the whole point was like you can't hate her, she's sick, but you see the things she's done to these kids and you're like I don't love her either. So it was
Yeah.
really hard to be in that kind of like weird murky gray area because you want to build some sympathy for her but at the same time like you still have that kind of resentment because she made some bad decisions and she'd hurt the kids in more ways than one. But even still like the complex emotions just for her character in general made it really hard to like not pick a side.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because it's like you said, she's not in charge. She's in charge of it, but a lot of that time it's more mental and it's not something you can easily overcome.
Yeah.
And then you see what she's done to the kids, and it's like, well, I don't really like you, but I kind of feel bad for you. It's like that kind of dichotomy.
Yeah, it was like a trap of my own doing because like that was the point of her character was to be really not morally gray, but like really just kind of that in between. But then writing it, I'm like, well, then this sucks. Like this is hard. I mean, she ended up being what I wanted her to be, but it
That's
was in the
good.
moment, it was really kind of a challenge.
So then on the flip side, who was like the easiest character? Who came to you the easiest when you were writing them?
I think Maisie's foster brother, Chris, all of the people that I've had, like, as ARC readers who have, like, left comments and, like, stuff like that, they've all been like, "This is my favorite character." He's very, like, golden retriever. He's the one of the ones that I put in there, like, for partially, like, comedic relief and, very light-spirited, easygoing, and he was, like, such a ray of sunshine, so he was definitely one where he was always kinda doing the right thing, and he was always just, like, what she needed, and he was really easy to write because he was kind of based more on, like, my own friendships and, like, my family members, like, I put all of their best, like, traits into one character. So he was, like, the most realistic for me at the time, and so he kinda came to me the easiest, and he was definitely the most fun to write.
Yeah. So then, and I don't know, we can talk on it, future books or future storylines of this, group of characters. Was there a character that you were writing and they just kind of like took center stage and now you're like, okay, I want to write a story about them?
Yeah, like, I had planned for this to be, like, multiple books, and I knew I was gonna give Chris a book, but I was like, "I don't know who I'd do after that," and as I was writing the girl that Maisie becomes really close with, her name is Lainey, and she's also Colton's cousin, and she was, not meant to be as important to the storyline as she ended up being, and writing it, like, her connection with, like, other characters, I was like, I could do this. Like, she's, like, got enough, like, charisma that I could make her into the main character in her own book. So she was one of the ones that kinda surprised me because I was like, I didn't go into it planning for her to end up, like, getting a subsequent book, but, like, I have been considering, like, I really could do it.
Cool. I'm excited to read her. So with you, what is the most surprising thing you've kind of learned with writing? Like you as your own individual author on your journey. What's like the thing that's been like really surprising to you during the process of writing?
I think, like, how I'll come up with random things and I'm like, where did that come from? But I think, like, one of the biggest things that I've learned and that's kind of helped me along, like, as I've gotten older, the idea where it's not so much as, like, write what you know. Like, that's what everybody tells you, like, through school and everything, like, just, write what you know. And I was sitting there and I was like, how I really don't live that interesting of a life. Like, how am I gonna write a book about, like, the mediocre, like, experiences? And kind of came to this, like, I don't know, loosely based in emotions that I either, like, have felt or can empathize with, can understand. And I think that's one thing that was, like, a huge kind of push for me that I needed to really, like, start writing was that it doesn't necessarily have to be, like, rooted in your own life. But it's like, if you can understand the character's experience and, like, what they're feeling, then, you've got enough there to write a book. Like, that's experience in and of itself. It's like, but yeah, like,
Okay.
not writing what you know, but, like, writing what you feel or, like, what you felt.
Hmm.
Like, focusing on emotions more than, like, physical experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I like that. I like when you put more of the emotional aspects into a book because then I feel like it's more relatable.
Yeah.
Like, I love the adventure, I love that stuff, like, with, like, fantasy or different things, or even with just, everyday life, if there's, like, suspense and things like that, but I like it when there's more of a emotional connection, because
Yeah,
then
and
I feel
that's
it.
how you relate to the characters, I think, because, like, people, like, reading like, romantasy or reading, like, fantasy books or reading, like, crime books or read, like, whatever genre you read, like, chances are you haven't been exactly in that storyline.
Yeah.
And the way you really connect, or, like, I do at least, like, you connect with characters through, like, I relate to them in this way, and most of the time that's emotional. And it's like, even if you don't relate to their experience exactly, it's like, I've felt that same way before. So you have, like, that kind of connection based on, like, the universal experiencing of these specific emotions.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So how do you keep well, you said you're in school, so that's, that's a task on its own, so how do you keep from having burnout while also being a writer?
Like, and it gets tricky because, like, I use writing as one of my escapes. It's like, sometimes it's like you need an escape from the escape. I've had to learn how to moderate, like, not letting it consume me too much, but, making sure, like, I take time for other things and making sure I'm still making time to read or, like go to the gym and do other things that I enjoy because like obviously I really love writing, but making sure that I take time for other things that are important to me and don't hold myself away too much because it's really easy. Like when you have a good idea that's just kind of like flowing, it's like, yeah, I could hold myself up in my room for like a week, but it's kind of like I have to remind myself that, that's not the most realistic option.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, here. So, with being a reader, also, is there a book that you've read lately that you were not able to put down?
One of the book like the series that I always go back to is like the Boys of Tommen series. And like even with rereads, like I can't put that series down. Like even though I know what's gonna happen, like that's just the second book in the series. I actually stayed up. It was summer, so like it wasn't a school night. I was fine, but I stayed up until literally like 6 in the morning just reading. And I was like, I saw the sun come up, and I was like that. Wow. But that's one series that is really like kind of consuming. It's just like really easy to fall into. Like you feel like you really know the characters.
So, do you listen to music while you're writing? Do you have silence? Like, what's kind of the process for you?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, music is a big part of my process too. Like I always have like playlists and probably way more than is necessary, but like I always make playlists for books that I write and it helps with like the visualizing characters and like the humanizing aspect, but I also like when I write, like writing in silence just feels weird to me. And like part of it is like I don't really do like I listen to music when I do everything. But I
Hmm.
always have, like, a very specific, like, character-driven playlist or, like, plot-driven playlist that I put on just to, make it feel, like, more like I'm in the world, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. So, within picking the location for your book, how did that go? Was it an area that you lived in, like where you've traveled to, or what did that go into
Yeah, it's
for your
it's
new?
set in, like it's called Elksboro, a fictional town in upstate New York, and, like, I was born and raised in upstate New York. So it was kind of like, I know a lot about culture, I guess, but, like, the region and that kinda thing. But also for this book, which it's different than with other books I've written, and because it's based around the foster system, I knew the most about the way New York, like, runs it. Because the laws kind of change. It's not something that's, like, nationally, like, we have the laws in place for foster care or the rules. So I was, like, sticking to New York, which I know, and, like, my mom is in social work, and she has worked in the foster system, so it was easier to stick with New York and be like, "Hey, mom, would you know how this works?" Because, like, it was just kind of, more central, and
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's cool that you have her as a like guide for, what would I do in this situation or how would you handle this?
Yeah, and that was part of the reason too, like hearing some of her past stories, because like I'm going into psych too, but I don't really know what I want to do yet. So hearing some of her past stories from like working in that was kind of what pushed me to want to write about foster care in the first place. Because I was like, this is not something that I've really read much before. So I was
Yeah.
like, maybe I'll write it. Yeah, it was definitely a good to have her there as like a sounding board.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how does your day look when you are in your writing mode? What does that look like? Do you have like certain routines or like rituals that you do?
Yeah, a lot of it is shaped around whenever I can write, pretty much I do. And for me it's a lot of on weekends because of school. So it's either like nighttime or weekends. And I'll, set up my music. I have like my little diffuser and my Himalayan salt lamp, so I have the whole like ambiance as much as I can get. And I'll usually have some sort of vague idea of what scene I wanna write that day or, like, where I want it to go, and sometimes it goes to plan, sometimes it doesn't. But, yeah, like, the chunks of time that, like, I set aside for writing, it's usually just me absolutely, like, zoned out of everything else. Or it's me sitting there, like, staring at the screen, like, "How do I start?" There's not really
Yeah.
an in between.
Okay. Very interesting. I like that. So let me go down here. So are you multi POV in this story or is it just strictly from Maisie's? You said Maisie, right?
Maisie, yeah. It
Maisie's
is
point of view.
multi-POV, and I find it so much more fun to write, like, dual POV, and, like, especially with this one because it was, like, the male main character, Colton, like, he's a teenage guy, and it was really fun to, like, put myself in the brain of a teenage boy because it would go from, like, the absolute, like, responsibility and the, like, emotionality of Maisie's plot and storyline, and then it would be like, I'm hitting reps at the gym and, like, gotta go get, like, my protein shake. Like, it was so much fun to just, like, put myself in the, like, thought process of a teenage boy. But I also think it's more immersive for readers to see, like, where they're standing in their process to, like, building up to, like, the relationship, like, where they stand. But, yeah, I think it's definitely, like, a contrast too, and that also helped it not be as heavy as it could have been and brought in a little bit more lightness because it would go from, like, the more serious stuff with Maisie to, like, his, hockey teams and, like, his other friendships, and it just felt like more of a balance, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So you didn't really struggle with being in the mind space of the main male character. Like that wasn't a difficult, or was it difficult?
No, sometimes I worry that I'm too idealistic and, like, but I mean, writing book boyfriends, like, there's a reason they're fictional. But, like, sometimes I'm like, would a guy actually think that way about this? And I was like, someone somewhere probably would, but not that I know. But I'm like, it was an experience, and it's kind of fun to just
Yeah.
think like,
Yeah.
how would it be different
I like that.
based on gender?
So within your story, how did you go about the approach with the trauma, like being sensitive to that and that process?
Thinking, yeah, like I thought a lot about
Let me
what I would do
try.
in that situation, and like thinking about
Maybe it's me.
things from like a very empathetic perspective, but also understanding like psych and looking at different trauma responses, coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, and making sure that it was kind of close to something that you would see clinically. And it looks very different for everyone too.
With writing the more traumatic things, how did you go about that with like the triggers and the sensitivity for readers?
Yeah, and I put like a content warning page in the front because I never want to like take anybody by surprise. Like that, like I don't want,
Mhm.
especially people reading it for healing reasons, like I don't want to like jar them and, or anything like that. But I approached this story, like Maisie's story, with a lot of like the psych, like the background psych knowledge that I have
Mhm.
about, coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms. And I tried to make it close to like a realistic expectation where it's not like, it's not as fictional as it probably could be. Like I tried to keep it pretty realistic and approach it in a way that, like, again, like not romanticizing it and not making it like I wanted it to come through like how resilient she was. I didn't want her to seem like really meek and shy and like and weak. So I really tried to balance between, her being a little more closed off because of everything she's been through versus, still showing everything she's done and sacrificed, like trying to make sure
Yeah.
that, both sides come through and that both sides can be true for people who have gone through hard things.
Okay. So if you could go in a time machine and go to your, you're young, but like your younger writing self before this process ended, what would you tell yourself knowing what you know now, about to publish? How would you advise them?
Like, I honest to God, like, I have written not I think 9 books, and
Hmm.
this is the first one that I've even really, like, attempted to publish seriously because I was so, like, paralyzed with fear of, like, what if I publish this and nobody reads it? What if I publish it and people, like, hate it? And then, like, this year, like, New Year's, I was sitting there and I was like, "What do I want my resolution to be?" And it's something that I've wanted to do for as long as I can remember. Like, I've always been writing since I learned the English language. Like, it's always been a big part of me, and I've always stopped short even though I have, like, all of these stories. Like, I've stopped short from publishing just because of the fear. And I kind of had this, like, moment of revelation where I was like, if I publish it, maybe nobody will read it outside of like my family. But if I don't publish it, nobody's going to read it anyway. So what am I waiting for? And I was like, if one person can read it and really connect with it and it really like helps them or sticks with them, like that's still one person that you kind of like touched like that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I wish I would have come to that sooner. Like I wish I would have had that revelation sooner and just not cared as much about, what if it fails? Like maybe it will, but maybe it won't. And like you're not going to know otherwise.
There's not a chance for a no if you never put it out there. Like if you just never do it, then it's just, you don't know. You have no idea what it
But I think imposter syndrome is, like, kind of a essential part of writing is, like, one day you're like, "This is the next bestseller," and the next day you're like, "This is the worst thing I've ever written." And I think that's just kind of like a universal, like, with all the, like, writers I've talked to or, like, known. It's just kind of like you have to learn to just not care, which is hard, but
Yes, yes. So do you think that you're going to read reviews or are you gonna just avoid them?
I have, and that was another thing that I had to and my mom actually, she was like, like, everybody has their own tastes. Like, people might not like it, and you have to and I was like, "I know." Like, I know that like, every review I've gotten so far has been very, very, like, positive, and it feels really great to read the positive ones and knowing that, like, my character's stuck with people. But I'm bracing myself because I know, negative there will probably be negative reviews. Like, even New York Times bestsellers have negative reviews. And that's one of the things that I'm kind of reminding myself is that, like, some of my favorite book series, some of my favorite authors, I've seen negative, like, reviews on their books. And I'm like, this is one of my favorite books of all time. And there are still people who don't like it. And they're just like, every book has an audience, but every book has, like, a group of people that really won't like it. And that's just
Mhm.
something that I've kind of had to come to terms with, like, not everybody's going to love it. And that's fine because there are some people that do. But, like, and again, like, even the best books have bad reviews sometimes. So, I'm braced for it. I'm probably still, like, gonna crash out a little bit when it happens, but, I'm ready. I've
Yeah.
got the
Just
armor.
take it with a grain of salt. Just take it
Exactly.
with a grain of salt. Exactly. So, how are you celebrating your milestones on this journey of publishing your first book? Are you doing anything to celebrate, your different things you've done?
I wanna do a launch party, but I'm not sure. It'll probably just kind of be relatively small, my, like, family and friends and stuff, but I don't know, I think just, like, letting it really sink in that, like, this is something I've wanted so long and I'm going for it is no. Like, letting myself feel, like, really proud of it is the biggest thing, I think, and also, like, absorbing like, I'm not always the greatest at, like, accepting, like, compliments and praise, but, like, letting myself know that, like, people around me are proud of me is, like, a big kind of, like, milestone for me too, but, yeah, I think, like, just being like, I'll be on spring break actually when it comes out, so I'll be around, like, all my family and friends, and that'll be, like, a celebration kind of in and of itself too, so.
Awesome. That'll be really great. So, do you have a favorite beverage or snack that you like to have while you're writing?
A lot like, I love things that are just, like, simple and, like, crunchy. I always go to Crunchy. Trader Joe's has these, like, little, like, onion ring things that, like, I love they're like, lentil crisp things. Absolutely love them, and they're very mindless, so, like, I'll be writing, and I'm just, like, snacking, and, like, I finish a whole bag, and I'm like but that and coffee, because a lot of times, when I'm writing, I'm, like, crashing. So I'm like, "Okay, we gotta stay awake," but
Yeah. So, what's your coffee order?
I'll do, like, a frappuccino from, like, places because 'cause I'm big on, like, I wanna put so much crap in my coffee that I can't taste the coffee. So, like, a lot of times, like, I'll make it we have, like, a Keurig here, and, like, I'll make
Uh,
my own and then just absolutely, like, douse it in, like, creamer. And, I love, like, the hazelnut, like, the vanilla latte, like, the kinda more simple as long as I can't taste the coffee,
then
I'm
you're
fine.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought we could do a like kind of rapid fire, quick, fun, would you rather um edition. And then I just have a couple more questions after that. So would you rather read from a physical book, an audiobook, or an ebook?
Physical book.
Physical book? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in this next question, you might think I'm mean. So
Go
I've been
for it.
told I'm mean. So would you rather crack the spine of a paperback or ruin the dust jacket on a hardback?
That's evil. Probably crack the spine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I love the sound of a new book. Like I get sometimes I order books and they're like special editions. So they come from like a Kickstarter, for example. And so they have them all like shrink wrapped and no one has touched it. And then I open the book and it does that sound with the pages. And I'm
And
like,
you're
that
like, "Oh,"
sounds
like,
so good.
when I ordered copies of, like, the physical book and I, like, took them out, it was, like, the same thing because it was right from
Yeah.
the printer, and I was like, this is amazing."
Yes. Yes, exactly. I love that sound. So would you rather have dinner with your favorite character or your favorite author?
I think my favorite author.
Do you
Yeah, I
have,
think,
can
like,
you tell
being
us
able
who that would be?
I don't know, that's a really hard I really, really like Elle Kennedy, and I
Uh-huh.
always kinda go back to her books, so I'd probably say Elle Kennedy, just, like, swap tips and tricks.
Yeah. Yeah, she's good. I like her too. Would you rather read a romantic suspense or a rom-com?
Probably a rom-com, just because, like, when things feel really heavy in the world as it is, I'm like, I want to escape and be in a utopia. But
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so this one's another one where they're like, that's not nice. Okay. So would you rather reread your least favorite book every month or never read your favorite book again?
my least favorite.
Yeah.
Sometimes I gotta sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So can you tell us what your favorite book is?
that's really hard.
Or like your top couple books that's like your go-tos?
Binding 13 is definitely a go-to by Chloe Walsh. The Deal by Elle Kennedy, that's another really big one that I like. And like I love Elsie Silver too. And I don't even know what my favorite by her would be. Anything like and pretty much anything from either of those two authors. Like I would definitely rather still be able to read like those books and have to read like my least favorite.
Okay. All right. Um, so would you rather coffee or tea? I think I know the answer to this one, but just to ask.
Probably coffee, but I'm actually like drinking tea right now, so that's kind of ironic that I say that.
Yeah.
Probably coffee.
Coffee. Okay. Now, would you rather watch the movie first or read the book first?
Read the book. Yeah.
Yep.
The movies always
And
miss
they
something.
do, always do. It's always a letdown. It's always like, that wasn't that way in the book, or they needed that from the book, or they left that out.
Yeah, and I'd rather
I
be like,
always,
wasn't this way in the book than like it wasn't this way in the movie. I don't know if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like I'd
Yeah,
rather
it does.
judge the movie than the book.
Yeah. Would you rather a cat or a dog?
A dog. I have both and I love them both dearly, but I have to go dog.
Dog. Okay. Would you rather a sunny day or a rainy day?
Sunny.
Sunny day. Okay. And then would you rather read a standalone, a duology, or a trilogy?
Probably a trilogy. I definitely prefer series where it's like, you get like immersed in the world and it's like I always want more books in series that I really like because it's like you don't want to leave. Like you don't want to let go of those characters.
So what are some hard scenes for you to write, like that you find difficult?
I think anything, like especially because I write very like trauma focused, the scenes that were the hardest were the ones that were about like the past hardships or why she struggles. Or like any character that I'm writing struggles. Just because like, especially when it's like looking at the past, it's like in the future like she's doing good or she's
Hmm.
she's on this different trajectory and then like going back into the time when it wasn't is always kind of like you just want them to keep doing good. But it's also like still a necessary part of the plot. And in this book in particular, any book where they had to like interact with their like biological mother was really hard for me because I was like, again, like I want to make it obvious that, she's a hard person for these kids to be around. But at the same time, like, again, she's kind of both.
Yeah, yeah. Then on the flip side, what are the easier type scenes for you to write?
I think like the ones that are very like found family concentrated, like between the friend groups and when they're just kind of all lighthearted and like goofing around and just like, being kids or just being silly. Like those are always the most like giddy and fun to write, but they always like come to you the easiest too.
Yeah, yeah. Down here, let's see. Out of your characters, which ones are most like you?
I would say Chris definitely, like he was very much based in just my sense of humor and I definitely like I relate to him in that way the most. And Maisie too, I think, like I'm also like she's oldest daughter and feels very like maternal, I guess, towards her siblings. I mean, she has to. And for me, like that is also like I'm the oldest daughter. I have like two younger sisters, and that kind of connection, like I feel very kindred, I guess, to her in that way. Those two definitely. And also like with Colton, like I feel very like connected to the way he internalizes so much like responsibility and he expects so highly of himself. But like
Okay.
I feel like I connect with every character to some
Hmm.
degree.
I feel like writers, a lot of the time, they end up writing a little bit of themselves into their characters.
Yeah, which I
I know
think is
that's for
really
me.
cool. I'm kind of the same way where it's like every character has like even if it's like a really small piece. And I think that's like something that's also pretty universal too, where it's like, like that's I mean, they came from you. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So with this day and age, everybody is trope based. How do you plan out your tropes? Do you write with the tropes in mind, or is it just strictly your story and that's kind of like the back burner?
Yeah, sometimes I'll start with a couple like this one I started with. I knew it was gonna be found family. I always end up going back to found family. And I knew I did like the twist on like the brother's best friend trope. But then sometimes as I'm writing, like opportunity just presents itself. And I'm like, you know what? Like I like reading this trope, so I'll include it in. But I feel like I always start with like a baseline couple and then they kind of develop as the story goes on.
Okay. And then, so what are some of your favorite tropes to read and favorite tropes to write besides found family? Do you have any others that you really
I
like?
love Grumpy Sunshine, but I also love like Golden Retriever. So it's like both, I guess, both extremes. And I really like I love sports romances too. Like I love hockey romances. That I mean this book is like hockey. But I also really love like what's the word for it? Like the Black Cat too, where it's
Yes,
like the
Black
reverse
Cat.
Sunshine. I don't know. Like I'll read pretty much like anything at least once to try it.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah. Is there a trope that you haven't written yet that's like on your I'm gonna do this list?
I haven't really done enough like I don't like whatchamacallit, like CEO type like billionaire romances.
Hmm.
I'd like to do one of those, but I haven't yet. So
Yeah, that one's fun. I like those. I love those ones. So who was your favorite character as far as their journey? Like maybe they started out like Grumpy or Black Cat and then like transition through the story. That's your favorite.
I feel like the easiest to say would be Maisie because she does grow, but I think like the one that was the most surprising
Hmm.
was Colton because he starts out very like school hockey, that's it. Like he is very almost like robotic. And as the story develops, like he really develops, I don't want to say a life, that sounds mean, but like he develops just like a sense of peace with not being on all of the time. And like Maisie's a big part of that. And I think like, it's very front and center that the book is about Maisie's healing journey. But I think that's another kind of like his development through the book is also like she was very good for him in the sense that like it allowed him to be a teenager too. Like it allowed him to really put aside all of the expectations and the pressure he put on himself and just like let himself, be a little bit more free.
Yeah. And like experience things
Yeah.
and having that. So with the cover, did you enjoy that process? Was it daunting? What was
Not
that
at
like?
all. Not at all. Cause I'm not super artistic. So I went through a lot of trial and error and I spent a bunch of time on this one and I really ended up hating it. So that I scrapped it. And I don't even know how many I went through. Between that and the back cover blurb, it is like such a nightmare because it's like it's like 100,000 word book. How do I put it in 200 words? Like, and it was just like, is this detail relevant? It feels relevant, but is it relevant? And like, even with this book, the title was easier. But some of the other books I've written, I'm like, what do I even call this? Like, what do I name it? But just like overall, I've learned to like the freedom of having my own cover, like designing it the way I want it more. But and that's one of the things like I really liked about self-publishing is like I didn't have to worry about one just being pushed on me. Like I could just say like I really like this. Like it's something different, something kind of fresh. And like I had that choice. So that
Yeah.
was nice. But the
Yeah.
process itself of designing it, I was like, "Oh my god."
Nope. Nope. I like that. So in your opinion, what makes a great story?
I think something that you can relate to the characters and almost like feel like they're like close personal friends. Like feel like you know them. And like a storyline or a world where you can really like visualize and you can really see yourself there. And that's like one of my favorite compliments to get as a writer, like from people who've read like this book too. They're like, wow, I could really like see the room you were describing or like I could really visualize the best compliments to get because it's like ultimately I think if you can see yourself knowing these characters or like feeling like they're close personal friends or like that's a situation you could be in, like I think that's what really makes it towing the line between like real life and like escaping like through fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I think that is, I think that's what we all want when we're
Yeah.
reading. You want to feel that. So how has been the process of self-publishing? Was it what you expected? Was it surprising to you?
I mean, in some ways, it was kind of what I expected, and in other ways, I have wanted to bang my head against the wall. I knew nothing about it going into it. This is the first book I've published, like, period, so I can't really compare traditionally versus, like, self-published, but it was really great having a lot of freedom, but also I had a lot of freedom, and what do I do with that? It was all kind of like I didn't have anybody telling me what to do, which is but at the same time, it was like, that means I have to make decisions, and I'm not really great at that. But I think, like, getting everything set up on all the different platforms because I have it available, like, everywhere. So, kind of managing all of that was stressful, but, I got through it and, like, chunking it up, doing it bit by bit because it's a lot and, like, registering it and getting the copyright and, like, it's a whole ordeal. But I think the hardest part for me has been marketing because I'm not a huge social media person, and I'm also, can't really pay other people to do it for me, because college. But figuring out social media has been it's a nightmare. It's such a headache, and I'm like, because I don't really, like, post even in my own life. I've never been a big I'll doom scroll, but I've never been a big social media person, so now figuring out how to have that whole, like, online persona, I'm, like, completely at a loss, out of my element. But, you know, you live and you learn, and every day I learn something new. So, you figure it out, but that's definitely been the hardest part about it is that I love the control, but also, God, that means, like, I have to do everything.
Yes. You wear all the hats. It can be daunting, I think, for sure. So, what is something unique or quirky about you or a hobby that you have that we maybe don't know about?
I don't know, like, I really, really like listening to music, but I have the most obscure music taste known to mankind, like, ever. I'll have a playlist on, and it'll be, like, the most gut-wrenching, like, Billie Eilish song, and then it'll jump to, like, Queen and David Bowie, and it's like, okay." Like, it's the most random, like, dumpster fire of, like, a genre taste because it's just everything.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It keeps you on your toes.
Exactly, you never know what to expect.
So, my last question for you is what message do you want readers to take away from after finishing your book?
I think that no matter what you've been through or your personal journey, like, it's always possible to find your place and it's always possible to find your people, and that, when you're surrounded and when you allow yourself to heal, like, it's possible for anybody.
Well, I'm very excited to read it. And
It's on Amazon. It's on all the big ones. It's on Kobo, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble. It's on Apple Books, Google Play, and then it's also on a lot of the smaller, like, Smashwords and all the places through, like, Draft2Digital. So,
okay.
yeah, it's pretty much everywhere.
Nice. I'm very excited to read it. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing about your story. And I'm excited to see what comes in the future from you. Like, it sounds like you have some plans for future books, and I'm looking forward to reading those. I'll link below your website so that people can find you. And I think I saw a pre-order on there available for the book. So definitely check that out. And please join me again as we get another look behind the book. And thank you again so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Of course.